Welcome to Crossroad Connection. We're speaking out for those left unheard. My name is Art Van Walde, and I'm your guest host today on Crossroad Connection. Dr. David Scheringa is on vacation, and he's asked me to fill in for him. And I have the wonderful privilege today of talking with Becky McDonald, founder and president of Women at Risk. So, Becky, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for being the voice of the silenced.
Talk to us a bit, Becky, about Women at Risk. Would like to hear about this ministry and what they're doing and how you are being a voice for those who are unheard in the world.
Women at Risk International is an international organization in 45 countries, including the United States of America. We address 14 different risk issues. We're most known for our fight against human trafficking, which is really just one of the 14. I've known that women are at risk for a long time. When I was 5, my father and mother took me and my brothers to the land of East Pakistan. I grew up on the Indian subcontinent, went to boarding school in West Pakistan, and at the age of 7 and 14, East Pakistan went through wars that we stayed there through. At age 14, it was a civil war when it became Bangladesh and got its independence from West Pakistan. And there was a genocide conducted against the Bangladeshi people. And our family stayed there through that so my father could protect the Bangladeshi people. And after the war, one of my girlfriends who was 14, I was 14, she had been raped and she had fought back. And to teach her, you're a woman, you have no voice, you're property, you're bought and sold in a marriage contract. They poured acid not in her face as is usual, but down her throat, to take away her vocal cords and make her, she never spoke again for the rest of her life. And God used that in my life to burn a hole in my heart and set me on a pathway of being the voice of the silenced woman or child. And so really what Women at Risk does is just that. We give voice to men, women, and children. We have 3 safe house partners of all men. And so mostly we rescue women and children, but we just give them a safe place to rewrite the story of their life, start over, and have unconditional love and acceptance. We're non-sectarian in who we take. We take men, women, transvestites, anybody who wants to walk a pathway and make a living with dignity and start that journey of healing. Each safe house has a church plant or a church or worship connected to it every morning. It's not mandatory. It's just an option like counseling and health care and child care and job training. But the women all come to worship. You can go make jewelry for an hour or do cake decorating, or you can sit in the back of the room and wonder, why do these people care when nobody cares? And so that's the million-dollar question. And so some of our safe houses, 100% of the women have come to know the true and living God. But we're just being Christ with skin on. We're just giving men, women, and children a safe place to start over and have worth and dignity poured into their lives and arms of love wrapped around them and a journey toward healing. And it's not a destination. It's not a 2 weeks, 2 years, and you're out. It's a lifelong journey because we're the family. We create community around them. We create the family of God around them. And we walk that journey like you and I walk with our children. We don't tell them, you're on your own when you come into this house. And I'm a school teacher by trade. My husband's a PhD. We don't tell our kids when you're in kindergarten and you need grad school, we're here for you. Everything else, you're on your own. So we create a therapeutic community around our women and give them the opportunity to rewrite the story of their life. So about 8 years ago, I got a call from Homeland Security here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where our headquarters is on 44th Street.
Okay.
And they were coming to Grand Rapids 3 times a week. And they now have a team here. But at that time, they were coming because human trafficking, which is sexual slavery or labor slavery, is that bad in West Michigan that they were coming 3 times a week. And when they came into my office and met with me, we had just rescued a child sold at 2 weeks old, rescued at 1 month old. And I was sharing with them that the face of trafficking internationally is becoming children. And at that time, they were looking for a 6-month-old, and they shared with me that the face of trafficking in the United States of America, in the land of the free, is our babies. And this is a carnage of the innocent. They were looking for a 6-month-old that was being advertised of a live rape on the internet of a 6-month-old. And last month at the Senate, in a hearing, we listened to testimony of a 6-day-old being raped with the umbilical cord still attached. So this is not just a foreign problem. This is a universal problem. This is a wildfire of epic proportions.
Well, let me ask you a few questions about this, because I know those who are listening right now, they're going, hold it. West Michigan, there is a problem with human trafficking. They're probably saying, I don't see it. Explain what's going on. What's the face of human trafficking here in West Michigan?
Well, statistics tell us that the government tells us there are 2,400 minors for sale in West Michigan at any given time. There are 3,500 minors for sale in New York at any given time. That's more children for sale in New York than all the women of all ages in a whole year that die of breast cancer. What this looks like, if we rescued all 2,400 children tomorrow, each of their stories would be different. And so every situation is different, but there are certain common threads that come to the surface. When the FBI did a pre-Super Bowl sting in Arizona this last Super Bowl, they rescued literally hundreds of people. And 90% of all the children and adults that they rescued were first promoted or sold on the internet. So the internet is one example of how this is a wildfire, and it is ubiquitous. You don't have to park your car anymore in a nasty parking lot where people can see your car there. Yes. You just turn your phone on, you turn your computer on, you can dial up a rape, you can dial up, pornography, which is, rape, and you can see it on in the privacy of an office or a room or in your car on a phone. And so this is not something that we are going to stomp out. This is something that we have to get our antenna up. We have to train our children and our circles of influence in how to see this. I do believe that we can make a difference in our own circle of influence. I don't know if I don't believe a woman at risk, a prostituted woman, would run into a church for sanctuary, even though it's a sanctuary, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't really care what organized religion does or doesn't do. You and I believe we're the temple of the living God. Mm-hmm. We are a sanctuary. Are we a safe place? Can someone run to me? Can my own children run to me? Can your daughter run to you and tell you your worst nightmare, and you don't react and scare her? The bad news is, the good news is you're safe, don't you?
Yes.
I know you are. But if your daughter doesn't perceive that you're safe, her perception is your reality. Mm-hmm. So if your daughter can't come to you, if she wouldn't tell you something because she's afraid of your reaction, then she won't. She'll go on the internet and talk to some idiot who pretends to like her. Or she'll talk to somebody in the mall or somebody at school. And the newest face of trafficking in the United States of America is 15 to 18-year-old cool girls at school recruiting 9 and 10-year-old girls. So Shauna Newell goes to a sleepover in Pensacola, Florida. She's 14 years old. She's recruited by another 14-year-old new girl at school. She goes to a sleepover, and she's sold on the internet for $300,000. So what this looks like, it might be a ride home from school. Teresa Flores, the slave across the street, she's now a social worker and works in anti-trafficking. It started for her with needing a ride home from school because her mom was late. And she had permission from her mom to get that ride. And it was a boy she knew. And he gave her date rape drug, raped her, took pictures of it, and blackmailed her with that for 2 years. So it's as simple as somebody who's a runaway, which we tend to think they're all runaways. Only 1/3 of trafficking victims are runaways. So it might be a runaway, or it might be a child that needs a ride home from school, or a child that goes to a sleepover that's no sleepover, or a child that goes to a party and doesn't know that there's really dark stuff going on at that party, and she's going to get coerced into it against her will and manipulated, and she's vulnerable. Maybe she's 9 or 12 and she can't drive herself home. And so what is she going to do? And every story's different. The bottom line is, culturally, what I've learned over the years, I'm 57, and I've been doing this for 30 plus years as a grown-up. What I've learned is that men, women, and children do not heal until they feel safe.
Yes.
But every culture defines safety differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so women at risk partners in safe houses look different in every culture of the world. Because what an Indian woman thinks is safe and what an American woman thinks is safe, that's where it differs. So in India, you lock up 500 women in a 5-story building with thief bars and padlocks and a guard at the gate, and that makes them feel safe. You lock one woman up in America, and she's going to take her chances under a bridge.
Right.
So the bottom line is people need to feel safe to heal.
And that is so correct. In the congregation I serve in Zeeland, Michigan, we became aware of a program called Safe Families.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that program.
And we are now signed up, and we have families that are becoming safe families because there are women and children at risk in Holland and Zeeland who have no avenue for a place to be safe.
Yes.
And so we're opening up our homes so that they can be safe and they can get the help that they need. If they need to go to the hospital for medical care, or the mom is giving birth and needs someone to take care of her other children, if there's loss of job, you name it, the list can go on. We're trying to be a safe place for those women and those children. And what's amazing to me is in talking about this to my congregation, how illiterate they were to it. They thought there was no issue in West Michigan with women and children being at risk, not having a safe place to go. Doesn't everyone have a family? Doesn't everyone have a mom and a dad, or a grandma, grandpa, or a brother and sister that they can go to in a time of need in West Michigan? That was the thinking. But no, they don't.
Or they perceive that they don't. Their family may be safe, or they may not be. Sometimes the families, I can't tell you how many times we rescue women and children, and their families are the ones that put them in this situation and sold them. And that happens too. Sometimes it's happening right in church. One of the little girls, one of our survivors from Chicago, her mother was the one that sold her and abused her and sold her to the men that came into their home. And her mother hunted at churches. She used to call it her playground. So it's right under our nose. The reality is that we don't talk about it. And one of the things that allows this to be a wildfire and allows this to flourish is that it's not safe to talk about brokenness in Christian circles. I love the body of Christ. But if the body doesn't make it safe to talk about brokenness, if nice girls don't talk about that kind of stuff, that silences the victim. And my passion is to give them a voice. And when you make it not safe to talk about something, you silence the victim. You shut them down. They cannot get help. Even the perpetrator, the abuser, is also a broken man or woman. And they don't have anybody safe to talk to. And so we have to allow our families and our churches and our body of Christ to be a hospital and provide hospitality and deal with the brokenness and woundedness of life outside the garden. We were not created for this brokenness. We were created to walk and talk in the cool of the day with a Creator God. And so none of this brokenness makes sense. People tell me all the time, Becky, I don't even know where to put in my head this level of how do you rape a 6-day-old? How do you rape a 6-month-old? I can't fathom that. And I'm like, good. Because if you can, something's wrong with you.
Something is terribly wrong.
There's no place to put this because this is not what we were created for. We were created for worth and dignity and intimacy, and we are going to search for that in all the wrong ways in our brokenness. And so part of the healing is being the body and
Yes.
coming around. Our mission statement is creating circles of protection. That's the first part of it. And that's literally a circle. That doesn't mean Becky can do everything for one person. I can't. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes the whole body. And when I spoke at the Pentagon last month, or when I speak to 1,000 lawyers or 100 doctors at Penn State or Hershey Medical Center or Spectrum Health, I'm getting all of one. But when I speak to the church, when I speak to the body of Christ, I'm getting one of everybody. I'm getting a detective, I'm getting a mom, I'm getting a social worker,
Yes.
I'm getting a hairdresser and a waitress. It was a waitress that rescued Teresa Flores. It wasn't a cop or a social worker. It was an everyday hero. I'm getting truck drivers. There's a truck driver that made one phone call and set a child free.
This
It
is
takes
amazing.
an everyday hero. It takes every one of us. And we have an 8-hour training day called Civilian First Responder Training, where we give out 15 job descriptions to realtors and plumbers and electricians and school teachers and parents and hairdressers and pastors and youth workers. And how can you be an abolitionist from the sanctity of your home and your own walk of life and industry, whatever your passion is? And so I'm not asking people to quit their job and go be Mother Teresa and start a safe house. I'm just asking them to Micah 6:8, do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly
with our
and
God.
say, God, what do you want from me? How do I do justly? How do I walk with, humbly and show mercy? And God always has an answer for that, because he calls us to do something and to be a safe place. And
Well,
it looks,
this is amazing information that you are talking with us about. I'm amazed at your passion.
that part's easy.
Yes, and you have a passion for these women and children and men. But we need to take a short break, and when we get back, we'll continue our conversation.
Correcting Bible study lessons is crucial to helping inmates. To partner with CBI in this safe and secure role, please visit us at cbi.fm on the web.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. I've been having a wonderful time talking with Becky McDonald from Woman at Risk, and during our break, we were talking about how does Woman at Risk connect with Crossroad Bible Institute and their passion for those who are incarcerated. And Becky and I, we're going to talk about that now, how Women at Risk can connect with the prisoner in the United States and throughout the world. So, Becky, let's talk about that a bit.
Thank you. Well, I have a passion for prison ministry. It began early in my life. I remember when my husband was in seminary, when I first met him, we started dating. He was doing prison ministry, and he was working with men incarcerated, maximum security, doing a Bible study on Friday nights. And we saw 12 men come to Christ during that time, and they got early parole, and their behavior, it was dramatic, the contrast of what Christ does in the life of a human being, regardless of their circumstances. Women at Risk International deals with a lot of risk issues, and when we're talking about the issue of human trafficking, when a woman is being prostituted, if she's picked up as a prostitute, she's convicted for that, and if there's drugs involved, although only 8% of women who end up in human trafficking go to it because of drugs. It's a myth to think that they're all drug addicts. For sure, the trafficker will try and get them addicted to drugs to keep them, because then he can or she can control them.
What's the number one reason for someone getting involved in human trafficking?
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem.
Yeah, that makes them a target. And so the trafficker, male or female, a lot of traffickers are women, will target that person with low self-esteem. And if you go on our website and look at the interview with Homeland Security, they interviewed men incarcerated, and to a man they said they would look for a girl who would respond to a compliment in a mall, and they would stalk her. And to a man, if she walked away from them and didn't respond to a compliment, they would walk away from her and look for easy pickings. So something as common sense, as low as creating self-esteem in our children, common sense, which is highly uncommon. But one of our ministries, one of our partners in Southeast Asia went into the prisons there, which are hell on earth. They're so much worse than our situation in America. And they went to death row, and they started 8 Bible studies, which have turned into 8 churches. And they were leading these men and women who are, going to die to Christ. And then they were telling them, please go back to our children. So we started helping them go to the villages where all these children are, and starting little tiny orphanages where we put a pastor with his wife and build a little house for them, and they take in 8 to 10 kids in that home and raise them. And we started raising money so that we could send those kids to see their parents one last time on death row before they died, and then entered into their life preventatively so that they would not end up in jail like their parents. And many times they ended up in jail for things that we would never incarcerate a person for in America. But it's powerful to preventatively surround that person. I have a partner in Ohio who started prison ministry and just doing Bible study, was a chaplain, and saw that women leaving jail in America, walk out with a paper bag, and maybe their mother is standing there and hands them a baby, and they have a paper bag with, not even $100, and they're supposed to re-enter life and figure out how, overnight how to manage that. And so we have partnered with her, and she's created 4 safe houses, which are step-down programs. So when they first come out, if they have an addiction issue, they have a different set of protocols, and to what we call an alumni house, where they can live there forever and they can walk that journey. And it's not a 2-week, 2-year, 2-month, year, whatever. You're out, notch on the belt.
So what I'm hearing you say is that in prisons, what you are doing is you are developing relationships with the women while they're in prison. And then when they are released, you're helping them re-enter into society and making sure they don't go back to old behaviors in old relationships that could lead them back into prison again. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, that some of our partners do that. Now, what happens when you take a woman out of prison is she's usually lost her parental rights, so you get women who don't have their children. Our program here in West Michigan is geared toward women who still have their children. And a lot of the programs in America that help women re-enter society only take women that don't have children. And I understand that, but I also know that one of the most powerful motivators for a woman is her children. And so we really try preventatively to keep those kids with her, because that will hold her feet to the fire. That maternal instinct can rise above some of the other lies that are flying at her all around her. And so my passion is to hold that woman and her children together. And yes, for sure, we're going to take women coming out of prison in those particular partnerships where they don't have their children and they have to earn the right. Because by the time you've gone to prison in America, you've lost your parental rights. And so, and one of the wonderful things about Michigan is recently a set of bills was passed in our Senate that allows a woman under 18 who was prostituted to have those charges vacated or taken off her record. Because what do you do when you come out of prison and you have a felon on your record or whatever? How do you get a job? And 90% of the women that are picked up in a police raid in Cambodia and sent home without job training get resold. So if you don't help a woman re-enter society, make a living with dignity, pay the bills, she's going to be vulnerable to a new scam. Now, she may not fall for the same scam again, but she's vulnerable now to a new scam because she's desperate. She has babies to feed.
She has babies to feed. She has to take care of all the needs in her life. Yes.
So the wonderful thing is to come around her with a therapeutic community, not just a counselor and not just health care and stitches and a lawyer or housing, but everything, and come around her with complete wraparound services from the community. Doesn't mean we have to reinvent the wheel. We have to pull into our circle, because she's curled up in a fetal position sucking her thumb because she's been tortured. I mean, we had one woman run into our offices, and I had to buy her a walker because of what her trafficker had done to her. She cannot go out to 18 different places and put her life back together. So we have to pull that in around her. Doesn't mean we do it. It means we create the resources right there that step into her life and pick her up and help her rewalk that journey to wholeness and healing.
Well, you brought up the term brokenness a while ago, and I'm so grateful for you bringing up that term, because we live in a broken world. There's brokenness all around us. And for some reason, in the church, we often don't talk about brokenness. We have broken people around us in our churches, in our communities, and we have a Savior who heals and restores those who are broken. And so, to close our time together, I want to talk a bit about our listeners. They have a passion for prison ministry. They've heard about Woman at Risk, and they're probably right now having a hard time stomaching some of the stuff you're saying, because
it's broken.
It's a terrible brokenness. What action steps can they take?
We have 17,000 hours, volunteer hours at our headquarters on 44th Street alone, and 700 volunteers. We could never do what we do and keep our administrative costs so low if it weren't for our volunteers. And if you go on our website or if you call into our headquarters, we have a full-time volunteer coordinator who helps people create and design a unique volunteer plan that's suited to their gifts and talents. It's not just stuffing envelopes. We have women who are seamstresses or jewelers, or they can rock a baby in a back corner.
So for men and women, whatever talent, gifts, passions they have, if God is moving their heart right now to get involved with this,
they need to fill out our application. It asks them those questions, because it's not about we need these three things. It's who are you? Art, who are you? What are your passions? What are you good at? What do you want to do? And then I'm going to create a unique opportunity for you to use your passions. College students ask me all the time, what's the best class to take for anti-trafficking? And I tell them that's the wrong question. The question is, what is your passion? Because if your passion is accounting, we need forensic accounting. If your passion is crafts, we're making products in our training center with American women to support themselves, rescue right here in West Michigan.
Okay.
And so whatever your passion is, that's what God will use to step into the life of somebody and to do justly and love mercy and walk humbly.
Well, Becky, this has been an enlightening half an hour with you. I am grateful for your ministry, your passion, for your love of those who are broken, your love for those who are not being heard. So I thank you for that, and I wish we had another half an hour to talk, because I'm sure we can go many other directions with our conversation, but we don't.
Thank you for being a voice of the silenced, whether they're incarcerated or at risk of incarceration or coming out of incarceration. Their voices need to be heard, and cultures of the world have silenced them. And there's no healing in silence. You have to bring the brokenness to the light, and it loses its power when you do.
Amen. And for all those who are watching this episode of Crossroad Connection, we thank you for listening. And we ask you to please continue to pray for Crossroad Bible Institute. And please pray for Women at Risk. Pray that the wonderful light of God's grace goes into the brokenness of this world. Thank you, and see you back here again soon.